Rachel, I know at dinner you mentioned to me that like one of the pitfalls of AI is this like copy paste mentality of GBT, and I feel like that's one of the ways that I see a lot of companies adopting AI in its earliest is like someone's got the free version and they're using it to respond to emails. And you just in this episode you talk so much about people being intentional about usage and rollout. And where do you see this copy paste mentality? I mean, first of all, do you see a lot of it, I guess? And second of all, do you see it being a negative?
Pros and cons. There's so many pros and cons of the technology that's out there, right? You can have ChatGPT pretty much draft anything for you, including performance reviews, responding to rowdy emails, summarizing 15 email threads, and then giving an example or giving an answer as if it's you. But I can definitely see sometimes when someone's replying to an email and it's so obvious that they just put it into ChatGPT and copied and pasted the answer, and they didn't even read it. Sometimes the response is so generic, or it is so not in that person's voice or tone that they would normally speak in. Or, and please don't let anyone be offended, but it's way more eloquent than you have ever spoken or written in your entire adult life. And then all of a sudden your sentences are like perfect by Grammarly, would never flag anything if Grammarly checked you. Just be really careful that you don't go from who you are and how you show up every day to something significantly different because you were using an AI tool and just copied and pasted the answer. You got to bring your brain to work. And I see this also in meetings. I see people, they don't physically take notes anymore. They just asked Microsoft Copilot to give them a summary of actions. And I look at the actions and I'm like, okay, who's owning this? I'm like, just because you put actions and follow-up items with dates in a meeting chat, like you still have to own it. Right? Microsoft Copilot is not going to chase every person in that project to find out their deliverable and why they haven't given it to you by Friday afternoon. So I'm encouraging people, like I see this all the time. People that were never note takers before are now amazing note takers, but they don't do anything with the notes. They literally just like, here's the actions from the meeting, and they post it in the meeting notes. And I'm like, okay, are you going to PM this? Like, who's going to do something with this? So use technology, but let it enhance you. We had talked about earlier, right? Why are people so afraid that AI is taking their place?
Yeah.
Don't let AI take your place in the meeting. Be there, but let technology help you to be there more intentional and save time taking notes so that you can actually make the notes happen, make the actions happen.
You know, I'm glad you brought up the notes piece. I read an article recently where they talked about that statistic about how handwriting notes and how that leads to higher retention. And all of a sudden you have people that were handwritten note takers that are relying on the AI, whether it's Fathom or Cortana or whatever it is, to take the notes for them. And it feels like, just to come back to this theme of being intentional, that when you're using AI to be, I don't want to go as far as saying lazy, but maybe you are. It feels like AI can be a detriment if you're not necessarily using it in an intentional way.
No, it's a great point. So think about if that is where you need to be, right? You need to be in a place where you can summarize very important, maybe technical conversations, maybe conversations that had a lot of participants. And it would take you a lot of time and effort to kind of scroll through the meeting recordings and before you were handwriting. I just want you to be really, really intentional about what did you do with those notes before? Like, why were you taking those notes? And use technology to free you up to actually, maybe instead of taking all those meticulous notes, you use the output of those note-taking tools and you use your human effort to book the meetings, to set up the follow-up calls, to sit back and think strategically and intentionally about what to do with those actions. Let AI assist you in getting to the action part of taking actions instead of the handwriting. So that's where our conversation was kind of going back and forth with, you've got to be so intentional because technology can kind of take over.
Yeah.
And you can like not bring your brain to work even
Yeah.
more than ever before, because technology can do so much for us now.
Mm-hmm. I think the last question I have for you is, you mentioned this, like noticing when an email is written to you using AI. I used to have this major pet peeve around receiving form emails from people. And I felt insulted that like you don't have the time to actually like customize your form email. Maybe you even left "Dear Sir" and or company name in parentheses. What have you noticed as far as you personally? I'm curious, what is your AI pet peeve of the moment?
My AI pet peeve is when there's no translation between what you saw in the output from whatever AI tool you're using and what you delivered and put your name on. That's where, when you didn't insert yourself, that's my biggest pet peeve. Like, if that's the case, don't even show up to my meetings. Just send your AI note taker, send your avatar. And why waste a time in a meeting that obviously you were not paying attention to and it's not bringing you value? So I think that's my biggest pet peeve, is there was no pause between what you received from whatever AI, and then you literally put your name on it. To me, I'm sorry, I'm an educator. I teach doctoral students as well. And that's plagiarism to me. And so that's one of the pet peeves, is when you didn't insert your own self. You just literally copied and pasted from whatever tool, and you put it out there in the world as if you brilliantly created it yourself. Let it draft for you, but it should not publish you. That's probably my biggest pet peeve.
Human review.
Human review. Let's add a little human review to this magic with AI.
Oh, thanks, Rachel.